My name is Zoe Harper. I just turned 18 years old. Last Saturday was my birthday party. My dad pulled me aside in the middle of it and whispered, "After the guests leave, you are going to sign some papers for Uncle Dean. Just a small formality." I smiled. I nodded. Then I walked to the kitchen, opened my laptop, and did the one thing that changed everything. I formally accepted my grandparents' irrevocable trust, a legal document that locked the farmhouse, the savings, and the investments behind a wall that my family could never touch. The next morning, my parents and my uncle found out that everything my grandparents had left me was already protected. My dad went pale. My uncle, who had already signed a deal to sell property he did not own, called a lawyer. But it was too late. If you are watching this, please subscribe and drop your city in the comments. I love knowing where you are watching from. Now, let me take you back 6 years to the summer my grandfather told me something I did not fully understand until that birthday night. The summer I turned 12, my grandfather, Thomas Harper, picked me up in his old blue truck and drove me 40 minutes to the farmhouse by Millbrook Creek. The house had a wooden porch that creaked in 2 spots. The kitchen smelled like coffee and fresh bread. The garden out back had a little stone path my grandmother had laid herself 20 years before. That summer, I came back every single weekend. My grandfather taught me how to check the roof for loose shingles. My grandmother, Helen, showed me how she kept the house accounts in a small green notebook. She knew every pipe, every window, every corner of that place. One evening, my grandfather sat on the porch steps and said, "This house stays in the family, Zoe. But family is not always about blood. Family is about who shows up and who keeps their word." I was 12. I thought he was just being poetic. He was not. Back home in our town, things were different. Our house was fine. 3 bedrooms, a yard, a garage my dad, Martin, used as a home office for his hardware business. Fine. Not warm. Just fine. At dinner one evening, my dad said, "That farmhouse is just sitting there. Property taxes are eating us alive. We should sell it and put the money somewhere useful." "My grandfather said the house stays in the family," I said. My dad laughed. Not a mean laugh, worse, a dismissive one. "You were 12, Zoe." He was being kind. Nobody asked me anything else. The conversation moved to my younger brother Tyler's baseball tournament. After dinner, I cleared the plates. On the kitchen counter, half hidden under a grocery list, was a glossy flyer. A property development company. Millbrook Lakeside Lots. Premium prices. Now acquiring. There was a phone number written in the margin. It was not my father's handwriting. I put the flyer back exactly where I found it, but I did not forget it. My grandfather passed away when I was 14. My grandmother Helen got sick 2 years later and was gone by June. The last time I visited her in the hospital, she held my hand and said, "The farmhouse is yours, Zoe. Do not let them take it. Promise me." I promised. The evening after her funeral, my dad sat at our kitchen table and said to my mom, "Now we can finally sort out the property." He said it with relief, like something heavy had lifted. That same night, my Uncle Dean called. I heard my dad pacing in the garage, voice lighter than it had been in weeks. I stood in the hallway, holding a glass of water, and understood something very clearly. My grandmother's passing was not a loss to them. It was a green light. I did not cry that night. I made a decision. I just did not know yet how to carry it out. Over the next 2 years, I drove to the farmhouse every Saturday morning. I fixed the garden gate. I cleaned the gutters. I repainted the porch steps. I took care of it the way my grandparents had taken care of me.
At home, the conversations shifted. The farmhouse stopped being Grandpa's place and became the family property. My Uncle Dean started coming over for Sunday dinners with manila folders and a laptop open to real estate listings. I tried once. Grandma wanted me to keep the house. My mom put down her fork gently. Your grandmother was emotional at the end, sweetheart. This is a business decision. Business. That was the word they used for everything that used to be love.
One November afternoon, alone at the farmhouse, I was cleaning out the back bedroom closet. Behind a stack of old blankets, I found a sealed envelope in my grandmother's handwriting, my name on the front. Inside was a single business card, Patricia Owens, attorney at law. Below her name, in small print, Harper Family Trust. My hands shook, not from fear, from recognition. My grandmother had left this here for me to find. She knew I would be the one cleaning out closets. Not my dad, not Dean, me. 3 months before my 18th birthday, Patricia Owens called me first. She told me to come to her office alone. I did. Patricia was a calm woman in her late 50s with reading glasses on a silver chain. She opened a folder and told me everything. Your grandparents set up an irrevocable trust 6 years ago, she said. The farmhouse, a savings account, and an investment portfolio. Total value approximately $1.8 million. You are the sole beneficiary. The title was transferred to the trust while they were alive. It never entered their estate. It cannot go through probate. Your father and uncle have no legal claim to any of it. The room tilted slightly. Why didn't they tell my dad? I asked. Patricia paused. Then she said, Your grandfather's exact words were, My sons will sell that farmhouse before the funeral flowers are dry. I started paying very close attention after that meeting. 2 Sundays later, Uncle Dean came for dinner. Afterward, he and my dad went to the garage. The door was open a crack. I heard Dean say, I already signed the purchase agreement with Millbrook Developments, $420,000. But we need the title clean before closing. We file a quit-claim deed in our names as next of kin and recorded before she turns 18. What about Zoe? My dad asked. Dean's answer was fast. She is 17. She cannot do anything. By the time she is 18, the sale goes through. We give her $50,000 for college. She should be grateful. I stepped back from the door. My hands were cold. My uncle had already signed a contract to sell a house he did not own, on land held in a trust he did not know existed. I texted Patricia 2 words that night. They are moving. She replied in 3 minutes. I expected this. Come Saturday, we will be ready. The party was at our house. About 20 people. Neighbors, family friends, my parents' colleagues. There were balloons and a cake and people saying nice things. In my jacket pocket, folded into a neat square, was the acceptance form Patricia had prepared. 1 signature was all it needed. My dad tapped his glass and gave a small speech about how proud he was of me. He looked at me and smiled. As a family, we have some exciting plans ahead, right, Zoe?
Every face in the room turned to me. "Thanks, Dad," I said. Nothing more. He laughed it off and raised his glass. The room followed. After the guests left, he pulled me aside and told me about the papers for Uncle Dean. "Just a formality," he said. I smiled. I nodded. I went to the kitchen and opened my laptop. At midnight, I was on a video call with Patricia. She walked me through the signing. 1 page. My name in ink. My grandparents' names printed above mine. "At 8 tomorrow morning," Patricia said. "I filed the lis pendens at the county recorder's office. That is a public notice of legal interest. Once it is recorded, no one can sell or transfer the title while it is active." What if Dean files something first? The recorder opens at 8. I will be the first person through the door. I closed my laptop and sat in the dark. In the garage, my uncle's quitclaim deed was already worthless. He just did not know it yet. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table eating cereal. My dad and Dean came downstairs together. My dad was wearing his business shirt, the one he saved for bank meetings. Dean had a folder under his arm. "We will be back by lunch," my dad said, grabbing his keys. "Good luck," I said. He paused and looked at me for a second. Then he walked out. At 8:14, Patricia called me. "It is done. The lis pendens is recorded. The title is flagged. Whatever they bring in will be rejected." At 9:05, Dean walked up to the county recorder's counter and slid his quitclaim deed across with a confident smile. The clerk typed the parcel number, read the screen, and said, "I cannot record this document, sir. The property title is held under the Harper Family Irrevocable Trust. It was recorded 6 years ago. There is also a lis pendens filed this morning. The chain of title does not match your document." Dean said it was impossible. The clerk pointed him to Patricia's name on the filing. Patricia had stayed in the waiting area on purpose. She watched them leave without saying a word. My dad called me at 9:22. I was sitting on the porch watching the neighbor's sprinkler sweep back and forth. "What did you do?" His voice was shaking. "I accepted what Grandpa and Grandma left me. That is all." "You went behind our backs." "Patricia Owens has been the trust attorney for 6 years, Dad. You just never asked." A long silence. Then, "I am their son. That property should come to me." "They loved you," I said. "They just did not trust you with this." He hung up. No goodbye, just a click. I sat on the porch until my hands stopped shaking. Then Millbrook Developments called. Their project manager told me they had a purchase agreement with Dean Harper for the farmhouse. He had guaranteed a clean title. I told him Dean did not own the property. He never had. The farmhouse had been in an irrevocable trust for 6 years, and I was the sole beneficiary. A pause. Then, "Is there any possibility of a direct sale to the trust?" "The farmhouse is not for sale," I said. Within the hour, Millbrook's lawyers confirmed everything with Patricia. Dean had misrepresented ownership. They immediately pursued him for the breach of contract penalty, $42,000 plus damages. Patricia also told me that the notary stamp on Dean's quitclaim deed did not match any registered notary in the county. It was forged. That was a felony. My dad did not contest the trust. Patricia had already explained what that would cost him and where it would go.
Nowhere. He sold his hardware business at a loss, but enough to settle the debt with the bank. My mom went back to work for the first time in years. The house stayed. Barely. Dean settled with Millbrook Developments. He paid the penalty out of a personal loan. His real estate license was suspended, while the criminal investigation into the forged notary stamp moved forward. I did not feel victorious. I felt the way you feel after a long illness. Not sick anymore, but not quite well either. 3 weeks later, I drove to the farmhouse on a Saturday morning. The dogwood trees along the road were in bloom. I unlocked the front door with the same key my grandfather gave me when I was 14. The house smelled the same: coffee and old wood, and something warm I had never been able to name. I walked through every room. The kitchen table my grandfather built with his own hands. My grandmother's green account notebook still on the shelf. The porch where we watched the sunset together. In the desk drawer by the window, there was an envelope. My name on the front in my grandfather's handwriting. Patricia had told me it would be there. I opened it carefully. 1 page, blue ink. His handwriting getting looser toward the bottom, the way it always did when he was tired. He wrote that he knew his sons would try to sell the farmhouse. He did not blame them. But he said Martin never understood the difference between something that has a price and something that is truly valuable. The last line said, "Take care of it. It took care of you first." I folded the letter. I sat on the porch. I breathed. Patricia called the following week with one more piece of news. My grandparents had set aside a separate education fund inside the trust. $50,000, earmarked specifically for college. It had been earning interest for 6 years. The current balance was just over $57,000. $50,000. The exact same number Dean had offered me as my share of the sale. My grandparents had already set it aside quietly, years before anyone started making plans. I enrolled at the community college 20 minutes from the farmhouse. Under current address on the housing form, I wrote the farmhouse address for the first time. It felt like coming home, because it was. I do not feel angry at my family. Anger takes energy, and I spent enough of mine on people who never gave it back. My grandparents could not stop my dad from being who he is. They could not make Dean less greedy. They could not rewrite 20 years of the wrong choices. But they could make sure I had ground to stand on. They saw the storm before I did. They built the shelter before I knew I would need it. All I had to do was show up, sign one paper, and keep my promise. My little brother Tyler came to visit me at the farmhouse last month. He sat on the porch steps and looked out at the creek and said, "It is really beautiful here." Grandma said the same thing every single time, I told him. He nodded slowly. Then he asked if he could come back sometime. Anytime, I said. The farmhouse did not just protect a piece of land. It made space for something new to begin. If you are listening to this and you feel like nobody is in your corner, I want you to hear something. Sometimes the people who protect you are not standing in front of you. Sometimes they planned for you years ago, quietly, without telling anyone. And sometimes all you have to do is show up and keep the promise. That is my story. If it made you feel something, drop a comment below. Tell me, if you could protect one thing in your life, what would it be? Subscribe if you want more stories like this. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. I will see you in the next one.